Hi everyone. Let's go over a draft I did a little over a month ago. Don't remember it very clearly. I have a few notes here, but let's take a look, see what I drafted, see if maybe in the last month I've changed my mind on anything. Nothing too exciting this pack so far. Maybe the Aladdin, and the Do It Again is no good. I'm not a huge fan of One Jump Ahead, so unfortunately Mickey Mouse isn't that great. I mean, it's kind of just a glorified Maleficent, but at first pick, I have a good chance of picking up some brooms later on, so it's a perfectly good pick. Now, a couple notes about this draft. You know, as you go into any local Lorcana draft, very likely there will be a lot of new players, and that's a good thing. But what that does mean is, we're not expecting pro level picks from people around us, so I believe in this draft, both the person directly to my left and the person directly to my right were drafting basically for the first time. So this is an interesting pack. A lot of decent cards. I'm generally not going to lean towards Marshmallow. It's challenging is great, but your opponent gets to quest before you get to challenge them, so it doesn't matter that Marshmallow lives. Definitely an interesting picks between Scar and Jasper here. I'm still not sold on LeFou. I know a lot of people like LeFou, but looks like I went ahead and went with the Scar, which, the effect is it's very interesting. I don't know that you open two rares per pack. You open three uncommons. It might be easier to get certain rares than certain uncommons. It's another very good pack. A lot of good cards. Looking at the hook here, but I'm just gonna lean away from the uninkables. 5-drop Aurora seems like a very solid pick. Again, it's a unique effect that's not really easily findable in the common and uncommon slots. Um, I think I've been doing a lot of practice seals after this draft, and I think a lot of the lessons learned there apply to draft two. And I don't think I uh, understood the curve as well during this draft, and I definitely would prioritize more 3 and 4 drops now, knowing this. Part of why I'm doing this right now is for my own benefit. I'm doing a draft tomorrow morning, so just kind of reminding myself kind of what a draft looks like here. All right, another pack. So a lot of one drops in this pack, and it was interesting because the one drops kind of flowed crazily throughout this first pack, but that's not something you can necessarily rely on. And I think that's the biggest, most interesting thing about drafting Lorcana is when do you draft different costed things, right? Because everybody is so pack dependent. If you draw anything that's remotely above average in the power level, like an Aurora, for example, you're taking that as a 5-drop. You're not taking something on curve, and if those things aren't available later, that can really hurt you. Just not a lot of very powerful cards in these packs. Uh, I think I take the Cinderella here, and it pays off in a big way later. But I think Stitch is an interesting choice here. Just because if you ever do see a Rockstar Stitch, first of all, 1-drop Stitch is great, and then if you ever see a Rockstar Stitch, it just becomes so much stronger. Obviously, not something you rely on, but so Cinderella could also just be the right choice as well. Gramatala, I think I passed up on one earlier, but it's I like it a lot, but there probably would have been better to take a 3-drop Mickey here. Um, yeah, it's still interesting. Again, so with ramp, you can consistently get the 6-drop Mufasa, I think, in draft. And if you have, there it is right there. And Chief Tui is also pretty common. If you can consistently ramp up there and just drop 2 or 3 of those, you're probably in a very good shape. But Gramatala, I would value possibly even higher than Detective Mickey, just because it's not inkable. But that being said, Detective Mickey is also kind of drawing you a card, unlike Ramatala. Well, sorry, it's drawing you a card when you play it, unlike Ramatala, where there's a bit of a delay there in the ramp. Your opponent might just not let you ramp your Grammatala. I think very happy to take a 2 or 3 drop here, probably the Donald Duck. Oh, nope, looks like I went with the Mickey Mouse. I actually am not sure where I want to be on 2 drops. I think I'm pretty comfortable wanting to be at 6 1 drops and kind of as many 3 drops as I can, probably in the maybe 12 to 15 range. But I don't know for 2 drops. I mean, you definitely want to have some playing on curve. Basically, the board state at turn 4 really kind of gives you a good idea of where the game's going, unless somebody has. I think there's actually relatively few bombs in this first set, so I mean, basically the things that are bombs are things that can completely swap the tempo. So you think of things like Maleficent and Hades as obvious examples, but there's not too many of those effects. Something that puts a character on the board, while also removing a threat. Either of those 2 cards could have been fine. Befuddle seems more playable. Again, you're gonna end up with in a 4-pack draft, you're gonna end up with 8 cards that you can't play. So, 2 cards a pack, right? 2 cards a pack that you can't play. So hopefully you get 10 in each pack that you can play. If you are doing well after 1 pack, gives you a little bit of leeway for the rest. Alright, pack 2 here. Far's okay. Jasmine seems fine. Don't want to play those. Kristoff's the same thing. Kronk seems fine. Captain is only so-so. A couple uninkable rares that aren't good. And a foil Mickey. I mean, that genie could be interesting, but 8 costs uninkable is kind of unacceptable to me in limited. So, again, I think this drafting Lorcana really rewards having your memory, paying attention to what you've already drafted, because you really are trying to fill out a deck, fill out a curve. Like, so many of these cards kind of functionally do the same thing, right? Like all the 3 drop, and then Kronk, right? If I feel comfortable on high end stuff, ignore the Kronk, take a 3 drop, vice versa. It just really depends on what you've already taken and keeping track of that. So it looks like I go with the 3 drop here. Might be overvaluing the Mickey a little bit here. Oh, no, doesn't matter. That's one of the best cards, I think, in limited. It comes into play so early, and I do have a little synergy with Cinderella here, which is actually really nice. But Grab Your Sword just causes such a swing that your opponents aren't going to be ready for, and then afterwards there's still not a lot you can do to play around it. And like I said, it lets you set up for you to have a dominant board on turn 5, and it makes it pretty easy to win the game from there. Looks like the next pack was kind of similar. Or am I waiting to pass? A lot of uninkables here. Flotsam, unfortunately, if you have the Jetsums, it's only okay, right? That's the thing. I would take Jetsums, and if I had a couple of Jetsums, I might take a Flotsam. I'll expand on that a little bit here. It looks like I'm choosing, Peter Pan is not great. Mickey seems fine. If you have, if you can keep your uninkables down, it lets you take a couple uninkables that, could have some good impact. I honestly want to keep my uninkables under 4. Maybe just 2 is good. Merlin is a card I want to like, but the fact that it only quests for one makes the support a lot worse than I'd like. Be Our Guest is a perfectly fine pick. Uh, Better if you have stuff to dig for, but it's just ink early, and the fact that you can sing it is solid. I'm happy to take another Cinderella here now that I have Grab Your Sword. But going back to Peter Pan real quick, really, I think I end this draft with one Rafiki and one Peter Pan, and it just really emphasized how much that one willpower matters. Rafiki can often take something out and then survive to deal another 3 damage, whereas Peter Pan is probably going to trade with whatever it goes into, and so it is just, in a world where ink color doesn't matter, I would honestly, and Peter, they're both uninkable, so, skip the Peter Pan. Mother's Knows Best. Very happy to have one. I probably wouldn't want to have more than one in the deck unless I was really lacking any sort of removal. Then I might have two. But again, uninkable, um, yeah, just a little bit too cumbersome. But going back to Jetsam also, Jetsam I think does have a surprisingly good spot just because it takes out Pongo and it takes out Tinkerbell and lives. Sure, it only quests for the one. That's a lot worse, but in terms of counterplay against those cards, it is very strong. It feels really bad being on the Pongo Tinkerbell side. Losing your character, your evasive character to theirs, and then they can keep questing, and you have to find ways to finish it off. Not necessarily that easy. Looks like I'm just waiting for maybe there's packs stacked up. Maybe I'm reconsidering between Captain and Kronk. Kronk is not that bad. I think I probably would rather have Mufasa perhaps, because at that point, the strength is all about just questing to the finish. At that point, when you're dropping characters that cost that much, I think the willpower matters a lot more than the strength. Yeah, do go with the Peter Pan over the Facilier there, which is probably fine. Facilier, um, I liked it early on, but it just ends up not being as quite as good. I think you just kind of learn to play around some of the challenger cards. Right. Always good to review um, your cards in between packs. I know it's not really formalized, especially at local casual drafts, but some places let you look at your cards while you're drafting. Just make sure if you do that and they let you do that, just make sure you absolutely keep your piles separate. Don't mix any cards. But if not, you definitely are allowed to take a look at your cards in between. Rearrange them by cost. Get yourself an idea. Don't let people rush you. People like to rush through drafts. Drafting is fun. They want to open the next pack, but take your time within reason. But see, look at your curve while you're drafting. It'll help you know what to prioritize, especially on that third or fourth pack. You can kind of get away with maybe not necessarily following it as closely for packs 1 and 2. Just draft the strongest card in every pack, and then but you really have to figure out your curve in packs 3 and 4. All right. Love to see friends on the other side. Will I be able to take it here? Another bunch of 1-drops. Cauldron I like. Oh, looks like I cannot take the friends on the other side. That card is probably a little too good to pass up. I don't. I think at this point I don't have any smaller Tinkerbells. I'm hoping for that one to come back around, but I don't think it does. Again, Tinkerbell, a unique effect. Very good in combination with the Grab Your Sword. Um, but hard to pass up. Also also a money card, right? I have nothing against money drafting. especially right now when pricing for for winning drafts is not that crazy. The foil Mickey Mouse is tempting here, but I think Moana is a pretty clear pick. Big body, the quest for three at five cost. Not much. Not much is better than that. Again, this is the kind of thing where I'm talking about the willpower being more important than the strength, right? Sure, they can just attack things in, and Moana won't trade back. But if she gets the quest twice, getting 6 lore is amazing. I think one of the people a few seats away from me opened an enchanted Simba here. It was very good. It's actually slightly miscut too. You could see, I think, some red at the bottom. Interesting. Another Moana in this pack. I think I don't take it. I think I take the foil. Definitely foil drafting a low here because that is worth several dollars. Played in the Ruby Amethyst deck. Happy to have it in the deck as well. I mean, it's inkable, and again, a very strong repeatable effect. It's good and limited. Alright, Rafiki. Not mad at a foil one too. It's worth a few bucks. Probably wish I had that genie instead of maybe the Peter Pan. And I've definitely passed a lot of developer brains, which isn't incredible, but is certainly a decent card to have. Cards like Develop Your Brain, Ursula's Cauldron, there's something called Virtual Card Advantage. It's less apparent in Lorcana since cards can be inked, but in late game limited, in Magic for example, when you can take a land that you don't need and put it on the bottom, it's like drawing a card. So effects like that are very useful. Say you had a Dingle Hopper in your deck because you had to, right? Or maybe that's a bad example, like a Work Together. Uh, Being able to just put that on the bottom of your library and pretend it's not in your deck is very good. I think I passed the Tekka. I think that's why I'm looking at that Moana. But at the end of the day, probably not worth it. Lots of Kronks floating around. So something that came up in, skipping ahead a little bit, but something that came up very much. So look at cards like Aladdin versus a card like this Mickey Mouse, right? So I chose the smaller body for more lore, and this became basically the matchup in my first round where I'm playing a bunch of the things that quest for 2 lore or 3 lore but have weaker bodies, and my opponent has some of the bigger stuff that only quest for 1 lore. So, for example, Captain, as opposed to like a Maleficent 4 cost. Um, so maybe not an equivalent at the 5 cost, but uh, at the 3 cost, very much, he had the Steamboat Willie Mickey and Wardrobe, whereas I would have the Kristoff, Mickey Mouse, Jasmine, kind of, or Cinderella at 4, um, and so it was in many ways kind of came down to the die roll. I won the die roll. I won game 1, he won game 2, and I was able to win game 3. But a lot of it came down to when he was able to go first, he would just have big bodies down, and I could never efficiently quest. Because if I did, he would just be able to kill whatever I had and still have something alive, and it became very difficult to win in that situation. Basically, I think he got up to 8 lore before I even got any lore, and even though I was able to kind of start clearing things out, he was able just to finish off with a few more characters. It looks like we're done with pack 3. I was able to get a few 1-drops towards the end there. last pack coming up. At the end of game one, I actually did have an interesting play. Another Cinderella here. I don't think I'd take that one though. Mad Hatter seems better. Two pocket watches is okay. Wow, is that the second Boyle Mickey in these packs? Mad Hatter is just a solid card. Um, you're very, very likely to draw at least a card off of it, and that's fine. If you get 3 lore and a card out of it, it did its job. So, very happy to have that. Um, but yeah, I think I actually had 2 Jasmines with a Moana in play, and again, my opponent had much bigger characters, so I was able to use the Moana to keep the Jasmine safe for a turn and quest twice with them to win out. Yeah, it looks like I felt like I wanted another 1-drop here. Beast Mirror certainly is a solid card. Inkable early, and then a good play late game, so would like to have one in the deck, but I don't think I end up with anything like that. I'm actually not a huge fan of Fire the Cannons. Yeah, there's that take off. Oh, I'm just gonna slam the Pongo. Uh, like I said, I've learned the lesson about the Jetsam, but at the same time, if your opponent just doesn't have enough answers to evasive, you just win the game. Yeah, double Pongo seems good. Yeah, Mufasa is also good. Oh, the Tinkerbell Temptation. Shield of Virtue, same thing. I'd love to have one in my deck, but it's kind of hard to justify. Uh, while shifting Tinkerbell is great, in limited it's just going to be so inconsistent and unlikely to happen. Going for it doesn't seem reasonable. Similar here. I think I'd probably take the Broom over the Donald because I have the Mickey, but it's maybe not even worth it. You'd have to, be able to replay a Broom at least once or twice for it to feel worth it. Now, Maximus, speaking of, playing against a deck where the characters are bigger, Maximus is perfect for that situation. You get to run a couple smaller characters into their bigger one without losing anything. Makes for very efficient trades. And makes for another reason to want your 1 and 2 drops. Um, if you can play, you might even wait till turn 4, 5, or 6 to play the Maximus. Play it, on turn 5 with a 2-drop, or on turn 6 with another 3-drop, and just really, get board control, and win from there. Like I said, it's kind of a struggle because there's just so few cards that really are that swingy. So you do just have to be as efficient as possible. Uh, Speaking of which, I do think I like the Ariel card. The not singing is kind of funny, but I think it's just I believe it's just Sapphire Maleficent basically with a drawback, which is a perfectly fine card. Now, that being said, I think that maybe not this Elsa, but there's the 4/4 Elsa would counter that efficiently, but also I think that it's just kind of a weird spot that it doesn't, 3/4/4/4 spot just doesn't come up that much. You kind of just almost skip to the larger things at that point because at the 5 cost you've already got, your captains, and just a lot bigger things come down very quickly. Yeah, Goons or Mini, either one is fine here. I'm not gonna mess around with Scepter. There's, I'm sure you could get some crazy plays out of cards like that, but setting it up doesn't seem worth the hassle currently. Yeah, same here. I'm hoping not to play anything, but while it may be boring, I'm just going to err towards characters at this point because if I have a character and I'm on the board, at least I have some kind of board control. If I have a bad action or an item that doesn't do a whole lot, you know, just having any random character, well, almost any random character is better. And there's that 4/4 also I was talking about. happy to take a Tibbs. Just have another one drop. All right, Frying Pan. That's the last card. One drops, two drops, two Grammatella. Again, mostly characters. Got a Mother Knows Best. Pocket Watch, I think I never used.
We'll just wrap up real quick here. It's been a pretty long video. I didn't actually make any further changes, though I think the only options you would really consider are Befuddle, Sven, Facilier. This also is probably never going to be good enough, and these 4 cards are not very good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. End up with 7 1-drops, one of which is not a character. The Broom, not great, but looks like we've just got 6 2-drops, 5 of which are characters. At the 3 slot, we've got 10, 8 of which are characters. Got the Mickey, the 2 Cinderellas were very, very good. The 2 Pongos also very, very good. Mad Hatter, but Grab Your Sword was an all-star. In round 2, it felt unfair. I was playing against a very newer player, and I drew Grab Your Swords both games. I don't think I lost the game where I played this. Moana solid. Captain was mostly ink for me, but you know it definitely plays a role. I probably would skip this card. The ward is good and the 2 lore is good, but only 3 willpower for 5 is rough. I don't know that I ever played this card. I'm very happy with Tigger. Early on, you know, I'd rather have Goofy, but very happy with Tigger. Scar also was very, very good. Kronk and Mufasa are fine, and, you know, Tinkerbell is also very, very good. So actually, you know, the high end is only 5, 6, and a little bit more on the 5, so not too bad in terms of curve. Round 1 was rough. Played against a very experienced Magic drafter, so they definitely had very, you know, good fundamental, you know, card playing, but they made you know, a pretty big misread, not realizing that the super rare Tekka just has Reckless, does not have Rush. So they tried to play it as Rush. And then they also had a little bit of bad luck where, you know, they only run 2 uninkables in their entire deck, but had both remaining in their hand and missed, I think it was their 5th or 6th ink drop as a result, which definitely made it easier for me to win, though I think I was already pretty far ahead at that point in that game. Yeah, game 3, you know, I started with a Grab Your Hand in my, round 3, first game, I had a Grab Your Sword in my hand, so it was very easy to just kind of set up the board to make that play, and then win from there. And then in the second game, I had a Tinkerbell in my opening hand, so kind of similar, just, you know, manipulate the board to get the most effective Tinkerbell out of it, and win from there. So, had a hard round 1. Round 2 was against a newer player, and then round 3 was against a pretty decent player as well. And went 3-0 in the draft, won some pins, was a good time. So, again, this video is dragging on a little bit long. Thank you very much for watching. If you stayed this long, I'm going to try to make as many limited Rise of the Floodborn events as I can. Looks like I'll be able to hopefully do a couple sealed events early on. One may be a starter deck sealed, but it'll be at least, I think, 2 or 3 packs on top of the pack in the starter deck. So, you know, a little bit more variety. If you like limited content, please keep watching my videos. Again, thank you for watching.